everything changed in a matter of seconds. But this time, it wasn't a miraculous play on the field that shifted the entire balance of power in the NFL. No, it was a terrifying, quiet realization inside a front office. Welcome back to NFL Nexus, the explainer, where we dive deep into the complex, hidden realities of the league. I am your host, and today we are unpacking a situation so unprecedented, so chaotic, it literally feels like a movie script. I want you to listen to this quote from insider Tony Grossi. Consider Watson a one-year bridge quarterback to 2027. He will not be back after 2026. Just take a deliberate pause and let the gravity of that statement sink in for a second. The Cleveland Browns are already actively, right now, planning to discard their starting quarterback. The very man they mortgaged their entire future for is now being openly discussed by insiders as nothing more than a mere placeholder. What we are witnessing here is the slow, agonizing detonation of an NFL roster from the inside out.
$80 million. I want you to slowly emphasize that exact suffocating amount in your mind right now. $80 million. This isn't just a heavy salary cap hit, okay? This is an inescapable financial prison. To put this massive number into perspective, $80 million is enough to pay for an elite blindside left tackle, a premier edge rusher, and a top-tier wide receiver, all at the exact same time. If the Browns were to simply say, enough is enough, and cut ties with Deshaun Watson after the 2026 season, they would be staring straight down the barrel of roughly $80 million in dead money spread across the remainder of his deal. It is, without a doubt, one of the largest, most toxic financial obligations in the history of professional football. It's a number so immensely large, so completely unprecedented, that it literally paralyzes every single decision this franchise can make moving forward.
So let's look at the hostage situation and how a spreadsheet destroyed a franchise. Now, you might look at the books right now and say, wait a minute, Watson's cap hit isn't $80 million right now. And well, you'd be right. But you have to understand, it's a complete illusion. To avoid an unprecedented single-year cap charge that would have landed in the low $80 million range, the Browns front office had to completely restructure his deal yet again. They manipulated the granular cap mechanics. They converted his base salary into signing bonuses, violently pushing the financial pain down the road. They managed to temporarily lower the hit to just under $45 million for the 2026 season, but make absolutely no mistake about it. This is a financial band-aid on a gaping arterial wound. They are desperately borrowing against a future they simply can no longer afford. This brilliant little accounting illusion introduces a terrifying new reality in the National Football League. We are officially looking at the era of the cap prisoner. What is a cap prisoner? It's a franchise forced to start a severely compromised player solely because the financial penalty of releasing them would completely vaporize the team's salary cap. You have to frame Deshaun Watson differently in your mind now. He is not a quarterback competing for a starting job. He is an underwater mortgage. He is a toxic asset that the organization is desperately, hopelessly trying to justify to a fan base that is losing patience. They literally cannot afford to bench him, and they absolutely cannot afford to cut him.
In this front office nightmare, it is currently spilling right out onto the pristine practice fields in Berea. We are witnessing a staggering financial asymmetry under center. On one side, you have Deshaun Watson. Vegas odds are currently giving him a low 60s implied probability to be the Week 1 starter. This is a heavily paid veteran getting first-team OTA reps who has suffered not one but two major Achilles injuries in the last 2 seasons. Every single step he takes on that grass is a multi-million-dollar risk. And on the exact opposite side, you have Shedeur Sanders, the 144th overall pick. He's sitting on a cheap, highly maneuverable rookie deal, and he was thrown directly to the Wolves, starting the final 7 games of 2025. You have an injury-battered veteran who costs a king's ransom, squared off against a cheap, resilient prospect who's being forced to stand on the sideline and wait his turn.
Let's actually talk about Sanders for a moment, because his rookie campaign was an absolute trial by fire. 7 starts, just around 1,400 passing yards, 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. But listen to me, here's the number that truly matters in all of this. Over 20 sacks. 20. He was operating behind an offensive line that functioned like a complete turnstile, taking an incredibly brutal physical toll week in and week out. His passing efficiency by the advanced metrics ranked near the bottom of the NFL, but context is absolutely everything here, right? A 5th-round pick getting 7 starts that fast means the team was in a state of sheer, absolute desperation. He endured a vicious sack rate that would mentally break most tenured veterans in this league, yet he kept getting back up. Most organizations would view this as a tough, incredibly valuable education for a young prospect.
But as we're learning, the Cleveland Browns are not most organizations. Just as the front office was carefully trying to sell the media on this fragile, carefully manufactured, open competition narrative between Watson and Sanders, the silence was broken, and the tension completely shattered. This wasn't a leak to a local reporter. It wasn't some anonymous source whispering in the shadows at the combine. It was their own boss stepping right up to the microphone.
Jimmy Haslam, the billionaire owner of the franchise, stood up and publicly threw his young quarterback and his own general manager directly under the bus. Quote, Andrew made the call to pick Shedeur, unquote. In the cutthroat, high-stakes world of the NFL, an owner saying this out loud to the press is a definitive death knell. It instantly strips all authority from the general manager. Haslam went completely out of his way to champion Deshaun Watson, praising him profusely while completely washing his hands of Shedeur Sanders. He publicly undermined a promising draft pick for one singular, transparent reason: to protect an astronomically expensive veteran with a history of ruptured Achilles tendons.
So an offensive coordinator, Travis Switzer, and head coach Todd Monken stand up there in front of the flashing cameras and insist that they don't have somebody who's ahead right now. It is nothing more than desperate, calculated damage control. You can practically see the sweat on their brows as they say it. It is a complete illusion. Think about it. You cannot have a legitimate open quarterback competition when the billionaire owner has already dictated the winner to justify his massive financial investment. The depth chart isn't written in pencil anymore. It's written in dollars. What we are looking at is a verdict dressed up as a competition.
And this perfectly exposes the sheer, unadulterated panic echoing inside the halls of the front office right now. Consider the calculated steps they are taking to mask this unfolding disaster. Step 1. Vehemently deny there is a clear leader in OTAs, despite what every single scout with working eyes can plainly see on the field. Step 2. Aggressively feed Watson the absolute lion's share of the first-team reps, desperately trying to manifest his physical health through sheer willpower and repetition. And Step 3, and guys, this is the absolute ultimate tell, they drafted Arkansas quarterback Taylon Green in the 6th round as insurance. Let's be real. You do not draft a developmental late-round quarterback if you truly, genuinely trust the multi-million-dollar guys already in your room. It is a blinking, neon red light of internal systemic panic.
Which leads us to the guys trapped in the crossfire.
Because the ultimate tragedy of this spreadsheet logic isn't just about the quarterbacks themselves. I want you to picture a specific moment from a chilly night in November 2025. The pocket collapses, Sanders steps up, avoids the furious rush, and launches an absolute moonshot down the right sideline, 52 yards in the air. That was the distance of a spectacular deep shot to rookie wideout Isaiah Bond, who violently ripped it away from double coverage. It was a visceral, electric glimpse of a highly explosive future, a future where a young quarterback and a dynamic young receiver grow together, stretching defenses and building decades of chemistry. But because of the crushing, suffocating weight of the salary cap, that specific future has been put on indefinite hold.
And this quarterback paralysis is creating an incredibly toxic environment in the wide receiver room right now. The Browns have invested incredibly heavy draft capital here. They burned the 24th overall pick on KC Concepcion out of Texas A&M. We're talking about a track speed slot weapon who can turn a simple 5-yard slant into a 60-yard touchdown in the blink of an eye. Then, just 15 picks later at 39, they grabbed Denzel Boston, a 6'3" red zone monster who outmuscles defensive backs for a living. And then, of course, you have Isaiah Bond, who proved his multi-tool worth as an absolute steal of an undrafted rookie with 338 yards in limited action in 2025. That is a terrifying trio of young, cheap playmakers. But here's the brutal reality. They might spend the entire prime of their early careers running pristine, perfect routes for a compromised placeholder quarterback who physically cannot get them the football.
The pure football development of Isaiah Bond, KC Concepcion, and Denzel Boston is completely paralyzed by a financial obligation they had absolutely no part in creating. In Cleveland right now, the spreadsheet has officially outranked the depth chart. If this franchise could just establish a reliable, young quarterback with his eyes consistently down the field, this offense would be an absolute nightmare for defensive coordinators to defend. Instead, these young careers are stalling on the runway. Their statistics will suffer, their future contract values will inevitably plummet, all because the franchise is too busy managing a toxic financial asset to actually play football.
And the frustration isn't limited to the offense. The defense is rebelling.
The rot doesn't stop on the offensive side of the ball. It is actively spreading, and it has pushed the undeniable face of the franchise to his absolute breaking point. Myles Garrett isn't just a player, he is a generational, perennial Defensive Player of the Year talent, and the behind-the-scenes clues leaking out right now are absolutely deafening. He has effectively ghosted the team facility, he has flat-out refused to even meet the new coaching staff, and perhaps most tellingly, he and the team agreed to restructure the timing of his option bonuses. Any NFL executive or cap expert knows exactly what that means. They alter the contract specifically to buy time to facilitate a trade. The captain of the defense is quietly but ruthlessly forcing his way off a sinking ship.
The most plugged-in insiders are already validating these explosive rumors. Zach Jackson of The Athletic notes that Garrett's value will literally never be higher than it is right this very second. And contending teams are circling the waters like sharks smelling blood. League executives are watching this situation with bated breath because they know general manager Andrew Berry is backed tightly into a corner. He might be desperate enough to hit the absolute nuclear reset button. The cap situation is so utterly dire on offense that trading a Hall of Fame caliber defensive talent might actually be the only mathematical way to breathe life back into this franchise's future.
And this brings us to a looming, seismic, blockbuster trade scenario, a move so massive that it could permanently alter the balance of power across the entire NFL landscape for the next decade. Teams aren't just calling Cleveland with polite inquiries to see what the asking price is. They are preparing Godfather offers so big they will make league history.
I want you to obsess over the staggering scale of this reported package coming from the Los Angeles Rams. They are internally calling it a Ricky Williams-esque offer. A first-round pick, a third-round pick, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh-round pick. The Rams are in a pure, unadulterated win-now window. They are reportedly willing to mortgage nearly an entire draft class just to pair Myles Garrett on the exact same defensive line as Matthew Stafford's offense. Just imagine the sheer, unmitigated terror that defensive front would inflict on the NFC West. It would be virtually unblockable.
But the Rams aren't alone in this hunt. You have an aggressive, shadowy push coming from Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles. Roseman is notorious around the league for striking when blood is in the water, and they have been heavily linked to Garrett since he first went public with a trade request back in February of 2025. And here is the real kicker. The Eagles are armed to the absolute teeth. They're sitting on a massive goldmine of high-value draft capital from their impending trade, sending superstar wide receiver A.J. Brown to the New England Patriots. They have the ammunition to easily get into bidding war, and they desperately want Myles Garrett wearing midnight green.
If we zoom out for a second, the implications of all of this are just staggering. Cleveland's absolute disaster is terrifying front offices from coast to coast. It is exposing the hidden, unforgiving math of the NFL. General managers are waking up in cold sweats, completely rethinking the concept of the massive, fully guaranteed contract. Because of Cleveland, the entire way the league does business is going to change. We are going to start seeing heavy escape clauses and hidden trapdoors in contracts that teams never thought they needed, all because the Browns proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that a single piece of paper can hold an entire 53-man roster hostage.
This brings us to the most dangerous precedent being set right now in modern football, the absolute death of football logic. Standard football logic dictates that you play the best healthy option available. You reward performance, you protect your future, you put the best 11 men on the field to win on Sunday. But spreadsheet logic, which currently reigns supreme in Cleveland, dictates that avoiding dead money on the ledger takes absolute priority over winning actual football games. You start the compromised veteran because sitting an $80 million mistake on the bench is just too embarrassing for the billionaire owner to stomach. Which leads us to a chilling final realization. No matter what happens on the practice fields in Berea this summer, no matter how sharp Shedeur Sanders throws the football, no matter how Deshaun Watson's Achilles responds to the turf, the competition is a complete and utter illusion. The math has already decided Cleveland's fate. The salary cap won this battle months ago, and the Cleveland Browns are just playing out the tragic, inescapable script.
So I issue this direct challenge to you, the viewer, looking at this impossible situation. If you were sitting in the general manager's chair with the weight of an entire franchise on your shoulders, are you riding the cap prisoner, or are you handing the keys to Shedeur Sanders right now? Let me know your exact thoughts down in the comments section. And if you crave this level of deep dive documentary-style explainer journalism, you need to subscribe to NFL Nexus right now. Hit that like button, and most importantly, support the channel by becoming a channel member today so we can keep bringing you the unvarnished truth behind the league's biggest stories. This story is far from over. I'll see you in the next one.